Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. I'm back from holidays. So I've just been spending an hour or so going through everybody's comments, and yeah, I'm back. So this is the first video after holidays that I haven't pre-recorded. And before we get started with today's video, I actually want to, well, go a bit into history. And we'll get to the reason for that in a minute. So the Second World War, which obviously most of World of Warships is taking place in, with a couple of First World Warships as well, but this is kind of the one we're most interested in. Now, when did it start? It depends a bit on how you look. So, for example, for us Europeans, you could say, oh, it probably started in 1939 with the occupation of Poland. For the Americans, you could maybe say, it really actually started for us with the attack on Pearl Harbor. For the Chinese, for example, it started a lot earlier because, well, the Chinese have sort of been having a civil war going on for quite a while, where the Chinese nationalists were fighting against the Chinese communists. And when the Japanese invaded, which was, I think, in 1937, so, well, 2 years before, they stopped shooting at each other for a while and decided that it was better to shoot at the Japanese, given that the Japanese were proper foreigners and not just civil war opponents. So, well, that didn't go so well, and the Japanese occupied a lot of territory in China. And so eventually they decided to have at it again. And once the whole thing stopped, they started fighting again. The nationalists were often supported by the Americans, and the communists were often supported by the Soviet Union at the time. And eventually the communists won. Now, they mostly won because they got more manpower, because they promised everybody to have a land reform, whereas the nationalists kind of wanted the old structures back. And they also made a couple of, well, relatively big military mistakes in their campaigns. So, in the end, the communists won, and the nationalists had to escape to what was at the time the island of Formosa, which is now called Taiwan. But then they stopped. So the communists didn't manage to actually defeat the nationalists over in Taiwan. And even though at the time neither the Soviets nor the Americans cared all that much anymore, the Soviets actually got a little bit scared of Mao being super successful with his communism and actually having a better communism and out-communisting them in a way, which didn't hang so well with it. But previously they did things like, for example, give all the weapons the Japanese left behind when they surrendered to the communists, whereas the Americans were giving a lot of money and military supplies to the nationalists. But then, well, I mean, we're talking about late 40s, early 50s now. Korea happened, more precisely the Korean War. And the Americans suddenly realized, whoops, we actually have, the communists now to fight over in terms of world domination. So it was North Korea versus South Korea, and all over the area there was a policy of containment. So the Americans decided, no, you are not going to get that little remnant of, well, former nationalist China. We're gonna draw a line here and not let you conquer that island. And a couple of shots fired were fired either way, but eventually the whole thing just settled down, and which means we have two Chinas. We have the People's Republic of China, which is the big one, and we have the Republic of China, or also known as Taiwan. And they're still not particularly happy about each other. So there are a lot of well, let me say, political tread mines about the whole affair. And I'm not going to go into any details of what I personally think is right, because I have absolutely no place to make any comment on that. But from the historical facts, we can totally see that there is a currently big People's Republic of China and a comparatively small Republic of China, aka Taiwan. Now, the reason I'm doing all this loop here is because I've reviewed the Luoyang, and I've actually called her a Chinese ship. Well, it turns out that while, from what I've been able to research, the demonym for the people of Taiwan, or Republic of China, is considered to be Taiwanese or Chinese, in a somewhat official way, given that it is also Republic of China, the actual people much prefer Taiwanese, from what I've heard. So calling that ship Chinese, even though it was clearly given by the Americans to the country, which was very obviously not the communist ones, because in the 1950s, the Americans had a little bit of a thing against communism. So they wouldn't have given the Benson to communist China. But I do realize that it is not necessarily clear to everybody who's not aware of the history of things. So just to make that very clear, because wargaming has gone, well, and they called it the Pan-Asian line, which nicely gets around all these kind of problems, but we actually have to be relatively careful in how we look at these things, because some ships in the Pan-Asian line are belonging to the People's Republic of China, and some ships in the Pan-Asian line belong to the Republic of China, or Taiwan, as we want to call it from here. So I'll be more careful in the future and actually call the things Taiwanese, because that makes it absolutely clear for everybody that I'm not talking about the People's Republic of China, even though if they're American, it is very unlikely that they'll ever end up there in the first place. That out of the way, let's get on with today's main program. So if you're familiar with the format of these Road 2 series, then you know that I usually unlock the ship, well, while I'm recording. Now, I have messed that up a little bit, because I actually unlocked the Colorado, because I forgot. It's been a while. So it happens. Mistakes were made. So, but I haven't gotten anywhere. I haven't played her yet. I haven't gotten to the point of actually installing any modules in this thing. I've just unlocked her, got the captains over, and got all the upgrades done. So, Tier 7 American battleship, the Colorado. She is the last of the standard battleship series, where all the American ships were basically made in such a way that they would function together and could, well, fight in line. Now, what happened was that the Japanese actually built the Nagato, and the Nagato has, as we all know, 400mm main guns. So the Americans realized that happened and went, oh dear, we're going to need a bigger gun. That's why the Colorado also has 400mm main guns. Other than that, she's pretty much an evolution again of the preceding classes of ships that we have. So she has a decent defense. She's got actually a relatively good torpedo damage reduction, and she has 45,000 hit points, which is also not absolutely terrible. Her turn time, though, is a bit terrible. So 15 seconds. Ugh. No, not really. The 400mm main guns, there's only 8 of them. Because obviously, if you don't make the ship much larger, you put bigger guns in there, you do need the space, and you can't put as many of them in there. So the turrets tend to be quite heavy. Actually, historically, the Colorado, as in the lead ship of her class, managed to avoid having things dropped on her in Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, because she was for refit over back in the US. So when she came back, everybody had been bombed, but she survived, and she did a lot of shore bombardment in return during the campaign of getting towards the Japanese homeland. So there's a bit of justice for you right here. Yes, other than that, where were we? Speed, 20 knots. Which is really not much. Again, standard battleship, and the Americans were still of the opinion that 20 knots were around about the correct amount of things of speed that you needed. Do keep in mind that at the time when these things were built, and I mean the Colorado was built, what does Wargaming say, 1923. Yeah, it should be about right. So she's an interwar ship. She had to conform to the naval treaties. And aircraft, nobody thought that aircraft carriers were any good at the time. So basically people thought, it's not like in World of Warships here, where you're in Tier 7 and aircraft carriers are an actual problem. No, when these things were built, everybody thought that it's all about battleships. And aircraft carriers were kind of like a fancy, newfangled thing that the crusty old naval people really couldn't give a rat's arse about. So until they started sinking everybody's stuff, that's when people changed their minds somewhat. But back to the Colorado. So, slow ship, decent armor, Turn time's terrible. We're going to have to do something about it. 400mm guns, 8, and a 21-second reload, which is kind of standard around about now. Okay, HE damage, pretty good AP damage, and 13.5 kilometer range. This is on fully upgrades already because, sorry, I forgot. I did that already. Secondaries, we've got 127mm destroyer guns, but again, the secondaries, the secondary 120mm secondaries don't do this, really don't do much of an amount of damage. I mean, they're kind of nice to have and they're kind of there, but American battleships for me are not necessarily about the secondaries. I mean, 288 damage even on full upgrades is not the greatest. But there's a lot of them and you can use them, you know. The AA is actually starting to become relatively respectable, especially the small caliber AA, even though that's just really for close range defense. So you're probably not going to be shooting down a lot of planes until they actually manage to drop stuff onto you. But you might actually make sure that not all of them get back again. Surface detection we don't even look at. It's terrible. It's large. It's a battleship. You can see them from the other side of the map. That's normal. The historical or the elite ship bonus. So not historical, elite ship bonus. What have I gone with? I've gone with the battleship modernization instead of the advanced gun director. Reason being that so far my experience with the American battleship has been not the most precise at max range. Let me put it that way. So I don't know if the Colorado is any different. We'll find out. Keep in mind, this is my first time to play this ship. So anything I'm going to say about it to be taken with a grain of salt, but that's the fun about it. And I might make a good video about later if I'm completely sucking at the beginning. So I did decide to go with the modernization, which gives me a bit more hit points, which is always good. Which gives me a bit more torpedo damage reduction, which given the turn time seems to be relatively good as well. And it actually improves the AA that's worth anything, not the long range one, which is also good. So that's that. Now I've pushed the captain over from the New Mexico. In case you can't really remember or haven't looked at what he looks like. He is got the underwater protection expert, obviously, the torpedo alert, relatively obviously. I've got the artillery maintenance to improve gun handling at the beginning of the battle when we haven't taken that much damage yet. I've got the victorious charge because I don't think any of the American battleships in the main line get anything with AA. I've got the fire supremacy, not for precise aiming, but for the additional rapid reload. Now, Wargaming has just pushed a patch out. So I think the higher tier ones actually get an additional one. But with her, let me see, Colorado details. No, she still gets 2 rapid reloads. So having a third one is really, really useful at this point. I don't know if I'm going to need 4 of them, but it is what it is. The reason being that I've actually had to sack the survivalist for that, and I really like the survivalist skill on battleships. So this might be a candidate for once we've reached ships that have 3 rapid reloads, and if I find that I don't need 4 of them, or I can't really effectively utilize 4 of them, that I might reset his skill chain, which is really annoying if that happens, because you really don't want to do that, especially at higher tiers and spend gold for that. But we'll see. I have no idea. She's got the generalist because, well, she doesn't have a hydro or anything like that. I've got the fully prepared for more repair kit cooldown time because it's the only thing that makes sense. And then, well, that's where we're at right now. So the going forward, probably either extinguisher or adrenaline rush, given that the American battleships have a relatively good fire prevention. I might try to go adrenaline rush, not sure yet. Other than demolition experts, the obvious choice going forward. Master reloader will make a lot of sense. And again, here comes, usually if you've got 4 consumables, I didn't necessarily need them need the master reloader for it, but I prefer this one over the additional consumables. So let's see about it. And then obviously APCS at some point, and probably horizontal protection expert or Citadel. So we shall see once we get all that way high. Anyway, let's get back to modules. So 21 seconds base reload. I can't get the precision module, which is really, really irritating because I would have liked the precision module, but it is not available here. I'm not going to secondary spec this thing because the secondaries aren't that great. I am getting the firing range extension, which, well, either these things start having a much better dispersion than the previous ones, in which case this might make sense, or they, because Wargame, like, it starting to push me towards range here, right? You see that. So either these 406s have a much better precision than the 356 of the New Mexico, or this is really irritating. So I might hold back on that and see what the precision is looking like on this thing. Otherwise, I'm probably going to go with the reload mod 2 to just get a bit more reload speed out of this thing. Second slot, I generally put into deck protection mod to get the risk of fire down. What was her fire prevention? Let me see. Fire flooding resistance, 15%. That's actually not that huge. I thought they were buffed recently. Let me quickly check on the... Oh, we got North Carolina coming in next. Yeah, she gets a much better, 22.5. Okay. So, fire flooding resistance still not the greatest on this thing. Given that this is just an evolution, again, of the standard battleships, probably makes sense. But I'm probably more scared of being set on fire than I'm scared of torpedoes. So I'm going with the deck protection mod and going to put that there. And usually here I would go with the torpedo damage reduction, but not with 15 seconds turn time. So she gets this steering gear mod 2 here. I'll leave the first one open and we'll find out when we get there. All right, supplies, standard stuff, reload, hit points, and chip speed. And we put that onto, oh yeah, auto resupply. Okay, all good. All right, so time for the first battle. And again, this is the very first battle I play in this ship. This might go all horribly wrong. But that's what we're here for entertainment. All right, here we go. Oh dear. Really? Okay, we're bottom tier against a lot of very good players. We do have a founder division on our side, and a Chappie and a Charles Martel. But there's just battleships everywhere. So these two might be able to do something. Okay, we're out in Trident. Where are we going? Well, let's see if what we got with us. There's the Charles Martel. If he goes A, okay, I'm gonna go A and see if we can do something here. But I'm very slow, so I'm gonna try and back him up a little bit. And let's see where he's going. Yeah, he appears to be heading towards A as well. Okay, well, let's see what we can get done here in a bottom tier battleship against all tier 8 battleships pretty much, except for the Gneisenau. Well, maybe we can do something against the Gneisenau. That's more of a battle cruiser. And there's a Cleveland there as well. So we'll see how she fares against a light cruiser. Okay, where are you go? Oh, no, he's turning over to B. Okay, I'm committed here. There's no way I can turn the ship around and actually get anything done. So the only hope that we can have is that the enemy team is not going A. Okay, there's the Gneisenau, there's the Cleveland already. Okay, oh dear. Can we get shots at the Cleveland? It's broadsiding, but I can't clear the island in time, I think. Okay, we can at least get the forward turret out against the Cleveland. And can we get some hits? Semi-pens, that's disappointing. Okay, better. Gneisenau, tier 7 battleship, or battle cruiser rather. And we're at 6 kilometer range. Full broadsiding, almost full broadside. Yep, that's the Cleveland setting me on fire. 5.4 kilometer range. Okay. Semi-pens. Right, okay. Not super impressed by now. Okay, I'm in torpedo range of the Gneisenau, so I'm kind of gonna have to... Oh, the Tirpitz is here as well. Okay. Yeah, we're very dead at this point. There's no way we can get anything done over here. All we can do is slow them down a little bit, so the rest of our team has more of a chance to do something around B-cap. Semi-pens against the Gneisenau with the armor piercing. Cleveland sets me on fire again. Okay, maybe we can just do something against the Cleveland. Okay, 10 kilometers, Cleveland. Let's see, stationary broadsiding Cleveland, 10 kilometers, 400 millimeter, go. Okay. The dispersion looks very much like I had on the New Mexico. It's pretty much all over the place, but we get full pens at least. No Citadel, but yeah, there comes the Tirpitz. I mean, the Gneisenau has the same guns as the Tirpitz, oh, and we lost one of our turrets, just less often. Okay, I don't seem to be able even to damage the Gneisenau, so let's go for the Cleveland. These are a little bit too far behind, but let's see if I can hold up here just a little bit longer. I'm just trying to gain my team some time because I am extremely dead at this point. Cleveland just buggers off, but I can get some parting shots out at him. There we go, and the Cleveland actually manages to take me down. So that's one hit, two hits. Very disappointing so far. But obviously, you know, this is the first game in this thing, so I can't really say much. But I would have expected a bit more against the Gneisenau. Seems like I can't pen the belt even at 6 kilometer range. I might have aimed a bit too high. Maybe lower belt would have been better. Or maybe the, because it's a German battleship, or cruiser, the Gneisenau's turtleback armor was actually holding up very nicely at that range, and that would have been better with plunging fire. So let's follow the rest of our team and see what we're doing. Okay, so we've both lost the ship. Me, obviously, and there goes the second one on the enemy ship, but this Alabama is pretty much dead. Alabama, you want to play at range, actually, not taking point. There she goes. The Charles Martel does the right thing, is capping. And they're targeting down the Cleveland, which is a good thing to do, because she can do a lot of damage over time. And these things are sturdy, they're surprisingly sturdy. So he's using the island as cover against the battleship on the other side and goes bowing against the rest of them, which is the right positioning here. And trying to focus down the Cleveland. That's, by the way, the new communication system in play, which is, I find personally really useful to communicate with your teammates and saying, hey, please focus on this ship. That's a super useful feature. I'm kind of missing the well done button, because that was always nice. Okay, there. Chappie takes out the Cleveland. And the Charles Martel keeps up the fire against the enemy ships. Now, I would have expected him to switch over to the high explosive against the battleships. But maybe he's very good at aiming at these distances, and I have no idea how precise that thing is. And what else do we got? So we got B-Cap. We're leading in points. We're one ship ahead. Okay, let's see what this Chabayev is doing. He's broadsiding a Tirpitz. Okay, that's brave. But again, this is a founder player, so he probably knows what he's doing. He's trying to take down the Tirpitz. Okay, that might be a bit of a job. And he gets was this the Tirpitz's secondaries? Maybe? Because he didn't get citadeled at this range. He actually torpedoes the Tirpitz. Now, Tirpitz has torps as well, so that's why he's turning in. Okay. Tirpitz's auto-secondary set him on fire. He's firing the primaries at the bow of the ship, which, he's angled in, so the Tirpitz can barely hit him. And the secondaries hit him, but they can't really easily citadel him. That was some excellent play against the Tirpitz here. And Tirpitz is flooding. Seems like permaflood. Ooh, we got lucky there. Bit too far to the rear. Yeah, he's going for the armor piercing, and he's trying to hit him in the stern. But, I think we've lost the other two battleships. Yeah, he's hitting him in the stern, which is the right thing to do for maximizing the damage against her. But, well done with the Chabayev. And the Gneisenau actually gets the MVP. Oh dear. Yeah, sorry team. I was kind of at one side, and when you're in an... Look, the only consolation I have is that I didn't do as bad as the other mama. At least someone does worse than me. Okay, anyway, very first impressions, because I had about, a minute of battle before I died. The 400mm guns are not super punchy. Kind of the similar experience I had with the previous guns. It looks like I can't just aim in the general direction of something and fire and expect the armor piercing to solve the rest for me, like I could in a German battleship. But I actually have to check where I'm aiming with these things. Accuracy is variable. So I've had some salvos here, and again, this is extremely early, but I've had some salvos here which looked okay, and I've had some salvos here which looked much less okay, much more like New Mexico shotgun. So I'm not quite feeling the range mods on this thing. I might go with the reload modification, but I'm definitely going to do a couple more battles in her and see how this goes. So let me know what your impression is of the Colorado. If I can, how you play her. Do you play her aggressively? Do you play her at range? Do you play her? Yeah. Well, what's your style in this ship? Do you fire high explosive in this thing? You never know. So, okay, that was it. First impressions. I'll probably, given this is a tier 7 by now, and I'll be on this for a while, I'll probably do a second video after a while and just follow up and see if I can figure out how to play this thing more successfully. The speed is definitely, as usual, an issue, which is always the thing with standard battleships. Was a risk in this game to take the flank. I thought I had the French cruiser with me, but he turned away. And I was dead. So, not his fault. I knew what I was doing. But anyway, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. And I'll see you next time. Bye.